Hey everyone, this is Anthony with Interviews with Everyday People. A little bit of a different view if you're looking at if you're watching this back on YouTube, because I'm doing my first solo over the phone interview. So this is kind of different for me because I'm used to eye contact and talking to one another. But this is kind of cool because I found a guy locally from our area, grew up, born and raised in this area for the most part, and he's now living in California now, right?
California, Cody Vidal, everyone. How y'all doing?
Yep, Cody Vidal on the phone. We're going to be talking about a lot of cool stuff in the area and growing up and mixed martial arts and just talking to each other and connecting as people and getting that common ground and energy with each other. So Cody, where did you grow up at here?
Well, I was born and raised for many years in Pottsville, Pennsylvania, obviously, Schuylkill County, and when I was 2 years old, my mom moved out of my grandparents in Pottsville into the projects, and I was living with my mom for, I think, like 5-6 years before my grandparents readopted me, and then they had moved to St. Clair at that point. So I grew up in St. Clair, middle school in St. Clair, from 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and then went back to Pottsville High School where I graduated, and I guess we could stop there and segue into my later endeavors. But yeah, that's where I was born and raised, in Pottsville, St. Clair area.
Nice. Yeah, I was the other side of the mountain. I was a Monte City, Shenandoah kid. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was like my second home, buddy.
Wait, where's that? Monte City?
Well, after I graduated high school, well, even during high school, I was training at Extreme Fitness with Joe Godinez, and we had some Shenandoah guys, Gino Tedesco. We had Jack Paczynski, who's now an officer, police officer, and those two guys we really became good friends with, and we trained and sparred each other, and they heard stories about me, mainly from football and just stories from people they knew, because I wouldn't call myself famous because that's just a weird connotation for somebody that's not. But a lot of people in the Schuylkill County knew me because of sports or because of fighting or just because of my crazy personality. But when people got to know me like these guys, they noticed that I just had so much love and excitement inside of me and so much energy, and only certain people can vibe with that, I can't even stand people that have high energy if they're not directing it properly. I'm like, it calms me down and mellows me out. But, Shenandoah kids, they really related to me. They're really wild, like me. And we just, Shenandoah, Monte City, Mount Carmel, we hit it off. We were just great connections. And, I'd go to the high school football games in Shenandoah, and, after I graduated, I was, going to college at LTRC for 2 years before going to Bloom. But, I made a lot of good connections and friends that I still love to this day. I haven't seen in many, many years.
Awesome. Yeah, sorry, my wife just walked in. She's still messing around thinking of the house. She's distracting. But so you would grow up, you would say you were in the sports or like the sport crowd, like the football players and stuff like that growing up in high school.
I did not fit into any clique. I hated cliques. I hated isolation. I hated all that.
Yeah.
I just hated bad people in general. I didn't care what clique you were in. If you were just a bad person, disrespectful person, I wanted to fight you.
Yeah.
And I would not pick the fights. They would come to me because when you're a bad person, typically you're trying to hurt other people to make yourself feel good. And I had that sadistic nature inside of me, but I had like a code. I had a belief system that reserved that sadistic will to hurt somebody for the people that wanted to do it to the innocent people. If that makes sense.
So you kind of like enjoyed defending the ones that couldn't defend themselves.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I was bullied, and I had bullied some people, but not really bad. And the people that I would bully were the bullies, or the people I saw starting to become bullies.
Yeah, absolutely.
For example, when I was a captain. I was a captain when I was a senior for my football team, and I kind of always went against the grain. I'd blast heavy metal in the locker room when most people are like, "Oh, it's not rock, it's not pop music, it's not country." It's like, But this is the most aggressive, powerful music you can listen to when you want to go destroy somebody. And if I'm the captain, you're going to listen to this, and you're going to get psyched up like I am, and you're going to go out and kill somebody because of this. Trust me.
Yeah.
And I turned a lot of people on to heavy metal because of that. And I kept this peaceful, loving, yet still aggressive environment in the locker room. There's a unity, you know, like we were all basically soldiers, like 300, ready to go to war anytime. And I was ready to be in front of everybody else and ready to fight, kill, and die first. And I think that most people absorb that energy and realize that that's really who I was. And it was like a family that I never had, that I basically was adopted into.
Yeah, I have a funny football story. I didn't play much football. I found out my junior year I went out for the football team, and then found out about my joint disorder, that I probably shouldn't be making contact, because I made my first best tackle of my entire life and dislocated my shoulder, and then it just been a downhill from there with issues with my body. But I played with we ended up becoming really good friends before we lost him, Jesse Price. And I remember the one time we were all sitting in the locker room and he had his headphones on, and I walked up to him and I was like, "What are you listening to?" And he had like Hanson Mbop and like the worst pop music I've ever heard in my life. Like the ones, like the pop music that if you listen to, you would just drive yourself crazy. And I'm like, "Why do you listen to that?" He goes, "It pisses me off." And I get ready for football that way.
So you just name dropped Jesse Price.
Yeah.
Jesse Price and I ended up becoming pretty good friends. Not super close, but pretty good friends through actually training together. But the first time we met, I went up to a Monterey City party, to the Moon Tower, I believe it was called. And I had a bald head, and I had a reputation for fighting, and I was just going up there just to have fun, man, honestly.
Yeah.
I went up there with Nick Navratil, Rob Castingo, and some of those guys.
Yeah.
And when they took me up there, there were some girls, I won't mention names, you know, but there were some girls that I guess didn't like me, and they wanted to stir the pot. So they told Jesse Price, "Here comes this Cody Vidal kid. He's coming to the party. He's going to try to fight you. And just because you're tough or whatever." And when I showed up, this big, stocky dude just jumps out in front of me, and he's like hopping up and down. He's like, "Yo, man, you Cody Vidal?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I heard you want to fight me. I'm Jesse Price." And I was just like, "Forgive me, but I never heard of you before."
Yeah.
You said I want to fight you? He's like, "Yeah. What do you mean you never heard of me?" I'm like, "Jesse Price. Honestly, dude, like, I'm just here with these guys. I'm just here to have a good time." And he's like, "Well, I'm hearing that people are saying you talk bad about me." I'm like, "I've honestly never heard about you till now." I'm like, and I'm just here to have a good time and whatnot. I'm like, "If you want to fight me, I guess throw a punch, but I'm just here to have a good time, man." I'm like, "I'll shake your hand." I put my hand out, and he put his hand out and shook his hand, and like, you saw him kind of like deflate, like lose pressure.
Yeah.
And it was okay from there on. Like,
yeah, that was the thing that me and him had a conversation about, because I love that kid to death, and I took his passing pretty tough, but a lot of people used him as like a pit bull, and I always hated that. But if you like literally sat down and just got to know him and talked to him, he was such a gentle giant. I mean, don't get me wrong, he was better to have as your friend than your enemy, but I like I said, a lot of people would just try to stir up the pot with him. And I remember a big thing, like, I mean, it's a Schuylkill County thing, and I think it was more predominant for us. I mean, I graduated 2005, so I think we're around the same ballpark when it comes to age-wise. But I remember, like, if like the baddest kid from this town came to this town, they would try to put the two baddest kids together and see who was the baddest. Like, you know what I mean? It was kind of like a weird, stupid, like, alpha male thing in our area, and Jesse kind of always fell victim to that, like, oh, the toughest kid from Shenandoah is going to fight the toughest kid from Monty City, or the toughest kid from Frackville is going to, you know what I mean? And it was always that, like, weird thing. I'm kind of glad it's, like, not a thing anymore, but that was, like, a big thing for us in high school. Like, I used to tell people, like, growing up in this area, you'd go to a football game, and the security would be 3 times worse than it is now, because it would just be, like, the one side of town would come to this side of town, and it would just be a football game, but it turned into a fist fight almost every single time.
Oh yeah. I mean, the will to win, the will to dominate, the will to conquer is in all creatures, especially human beings, because we have the advanced mind and the spirit, if you will, to think, to imagine, really. You have an imagination, and like many of us compare ourselves to God, many of us compare ourselves to powerful figures, and that's who we want to become, and it's all basically like really survival based and prosperity based.
Well, I mean, the coal region area is definitely known for a group of melting pot of people who literally would come here and fight for everything they ever worked for. So I guess that
survival of the fittest, bro.
Yeah, that mind state always carried over in our area.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at the Schuylkill County, the reason why Schuylkill County is the way it is because it's literally what you just said. Schuylkill County was a booming county for coal, for farming, and for other industries. And so they brought in all of the failed countries that were hurting from the USSR, Polish, Lithuanians, Ukrainians, Russians. And they brought over the Irish, of course, to do coal mining and to do iron work and basically do all these really, really hard jobs and get paid a little bit of money for the American dream, to chase the American dream. And a lot of people need it. But what happens is when you settle in that area, like many of our ancestors did, and then the business that was booming dies, everyone now inherits poverty. And what happens when you have poverty is you don't have as much business, you don't have as much entertainment, and so people are going to seek entertainment. People are going to be bored. People are going to seek drugs. People are going to seek partying. People are going to seek just random sex. People are going to seek fights. And because their ancestors already came here with that warrior-like mentality, that fighter-like mentality, that passes on genetically, whether you know it consciously or not. It's a scientific fact. And so, like Shenandoah, for example, I call that little Russia. There's like so many people with like Slavic blood there that were brought over from all of those Orthodox churches, Polish Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, etc. And you know, like the movie Shenandoah, you saw so much competitiveness towards the illegal immigrants and towards the Latinos that moved into the area from like Hazleton and whatnot, because they carry that reminder that, look, we didn't have it made when we came here, and we still don't have it made, you know? And so you kind of can't blame their people for feeling threatened and feeling territorial, because that's all they have, man.
Yeah.
You know,
well,
it's easy for the Hollywood elite.
A big thing with history too. I you know, going kind of with the how our area kind of treats other people of a different race is that a lot of people think that when the slave time was happening, that if they came up north, that they were going to be free. And a lot of our towns, they weren't excited for that, because they're thinking, oh boy, we're going to lose. The only thing we have is our jobs and our coal, and they thought they were going to lose their jobs to cheaper labor. So for the longest time, a lot of people have that mind state that if you know, I mean, that's kind of something that passed on for a long time too, is that you're going to have people come up and take your jobs, and it's always that fear of the unknown. In our area, I mean, our area obviously was predominantly white, but it was still segregated. I remember the old school maps of like Monte City and Shenandoah. Like the one section of town had its own grocery store, churches, and school, and that was the Italian section. Then the Irish section, then the German section, then the Polish section. And I mean, it's just that's that idea of segregation and not understanding other people's culture has been in this area for a long time as well.
Well, that's what aggravates me about today's political atmosphere when it comes to Caucasians, is that we're all the same. If you get down to the base fruit, it's kind of true, but there's so many different Caucasian countries, there's so many different Caucasian cultures, and then even in the same European country that's predominantly Caucasian, there's so many different dialects and so many different structures of people that to lump everybody in as, oh, you're just white, is fucking insane.
It is kind of
my language.
No, it is crazy. Like an Irish culture and Irish upbringing is way different than Italian than it is a Polish, as it is. Like it's It is. It's just people just look at one exterior thing about each other, and they just use that to group, and it's kind of insane. Yeah, like if you think about it, like, oh, because we have the same skin tone, we're the exact same person, and it's just not true. It's really not true at all.
Well, you have what I would just, I've never thought of this before, but you have your minor tribalism, and then you have your major tribalism. What I mean by like minor tribalism is you dissect basically each little culture and divide them. Mm-hmm. And like, this is English, and this is the Irish, and then this is the Germans, and then these are the Swedes, you know. Mm-hmm. And then you have like the major tribalism, where it's just like whites, blacks, Asians, Hispanics, and we're just start lumping everybody together because of skin color.
Yeah, I mean, even if you look at the Asian culture, I mean, if your upbringing is Chinese and you're Japanese or Korean, they're completely different people, but we just look at them all as Asian, and they're all, you know, they got grouped into one. But it's just like every culture has that, and if people just did research on other cultures and people, and just boil it down that we're all just people and not a race, it would just be a lot better place to be.
Well, exactly. I mean, it's not just a human trait, it's an animalistic trait.
Yeah.
For me, what I believe is that humans are part animal, but part demigod, if you will. And what I mean by that is we're the only creatures on Earth that have an imagination. We're the only creatures on Earth that have this ability to think and create in our minds so that we can create whatever we want to make in reality, if it's possible. Mm-hmm. So what I mean by that is there's nothing we human beings create that's not first created in our minds.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you can argue that a monkey can sit there and build something with wood, but we're also close related to monkeys. But I mean, like, we're so far advanced compared to any other animal on Earth that you think we'd get it by now, but we still have those animal traits in us to hate difference. Mm-hmm. It's like all humans want to relate. Like, oh, your favorite color is red, my favorite color is red. Oh, you're from that town, I'm from that town. Like, when we meet each other, we always go for what's relative instead of what's different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you don't really learn anything new from what's relative. You learn something new from what's different.
Absolutely, yeah. I could definitely attest to that.
You know, like, how many people that are racist hate Mexicans but love Mexican food?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Are the same people that want people out of the country for being Mexican, you know, will happily open up a Corona on Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah.
All right, brother.
Yeah.
But
exactly. And then vice versa, all the people that, you know, are not Irish at all, when it's St. Patty's Day, they're like blacker than coal. And like, yeah, dude, St. Patty's Day, you know, it's like, people are just situational for the most part.
Absolutely. So you're kind of getting into how you were training and fighting and playing, football. Now, a big part of mixed martial arts is the wrestling background. Were you a wrestler in high school as well?
I wrestled 1 year, and I started doing MMA when Extreme Fitness opened up, like right after wrestling season. Mm-hmm. And it was like, either I'm going to go to wrestling practice or I'm going to go to MMA practice. And I chose MMA. And funny enough, I think I made the right choice, because although my pure wrestling is not that good because of the setups, I'm not really good at setups.
Yeah.
My MMA wrestling is really good because I'm allowed to strike and because I'm allowed to punch. That gives me the opportunity to easily take down people. I take down really, really good wrestlers. I just don't take them down either. I pick them up over my head and slam them.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if they're really heavy or not. It's just I got a lot of that. I got a lot of that from football, bro.
Yeah, you have a very aggressive style. You kind of have like an old school. How can I describe it? Like, you know, when mixed martial arts and UFC was first getting popular, you kind of resemble a lot of that old school style fighter where you just kind of went in there and you're looking like a Chris Lieben who utilized a takedown. If I had a way to describe your style a little bit, you're in there. You weren't afraid to exchange to get to land one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, from watching some of your highlights and your semi-pro into your pro, you weren't afraid to tuck your chin and fight in a phone booth, and then if you had to, you did have a decent takedown, and you were very explosive with your takedown.
Yeah, I've had many people tell me I'm the strongest guy they ever felt, like pound for pound. You know, the most I've ever weighed was 225, and when I get up there, I'm really, really strong. But whether I was fighting at 170 or 185 or 205, I was always stronger than my opponents. Where I think I faltered, where I know I faltered, I should say, is that, preparation is key in life. And I literally would take fights, so I literally would get into training, go back into sparring after like having months, if not year, off of training due to injuries, due to circumstances in life that prohibited me from training. And I would literally just take down, tap out, rock, drop top fighters who are on the UFC contracts or Bellator contracts. And I remember doing this and like just being scared of getting tired. Cause I'm like, dude, I am not in shape. I am hurt. My knee sucks. You know, like my knee's messed up. My back's messed up. My wrist is messed up. My neck is messed up. And I just have that belief in myself because I have that natural ability. And when I was young, I didn't know I had that. I grew up loving professional wrestling. Like I was obsessed with pro wrestling.
I'm wearing an AJ Styles shirt right now.
Yeah, and I did not, that's awesome. I did not have anybody direct me to actual wrestling, and I did not have anybody direct me to boxing or martial arts.
Yeah.
Like I knew boxing from watching boxing with my grandfather. I knew boxing from Rocky. I knew martial arts from all the Jean-Claude Van Damme movies, Steven Seagal movies, etc. Power Rangers, Ninja Turtles, and stuff like that. And like I always shadow boxed as a kid. I didn't know what shadow boxing was. I just pretended to fight people. And so like eventually when I got into fights, when I just basically felt so threatened that I couldn't, not. I had to fight at that point.
Yeah.
I got to a point where I was a young kid. Yeah, and I had to fight because people were always picking at me, wanting to try to instigate me, fight me, hitting me, trying to get me to fight, and then I eventually raged. And that's when it just came natural to me. It was like, wow, just this power that I didn't really know I had just came out, and I would just easily beat people up. It was not like I've never lost an actual fight. And even in MMA, being injured and being tired, I was never knocked out unconscious. I was never tapped out. And I think that says a lot about somebody like me who has always trained with some severe injuries, who has never truly been able to prepare properly for a competitive fight in mixed martial arts. And the last thing I'll say about that is I train with very good guys in the who are in the UFC, in the Bellator. These guys do this 2 times a day, every day. And if I wasn't injured right now, I can go in there out of shape. And what I mean by injured is actually like being in a brace. I go in there and I could do very good against them. And they know that. And they know that I've proven that time after time. But like anything, Anthony, consistency develops discipline. Discipline develops success. And that success is what, really makes you feel valued, makes you feel valued for yourself, etc. So I'll just stop there. You can ask more questions. I mean, I could talk about this all day long.
No, you can go, brother. It's open forum. Like when you first got into fighting, you said you trained in Shenandoah to start off with, right?
Well, I trained with guys from Shenandoah in St. Clair.
In St. Clair, I was gonna say you trained in the St. Clair gym, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now, the only other name. I mean, obviously, there's a bunch of names that came out of the area that were decent fighters, but you have Murphy. He had a pretty good run for a while there.
You had Murphy.
Yeah.
You had James Bova. You had Chris Reedy. You had like I said, Gino Tedesco was tough. I've seen him take good beatings and just stay in the game. Jack Paczynski, if he ever really took it fully serious with a good training camp, he would have been phenomenal. And Big Jack, he had some good skills and crazy knockout power.
Yeah.
Ryan Setlock, I don't know if you know him.
Yes.
Ryan Setlock is older than me. He's a funny guy. and he's got a really, really nasty temper. He's Polish-Irish. The Setlock family, they're a bunch of tough guys, bunch of brothers, lots of them. I knew old man Setlock, and he was a good guy to me. And he passed away, so rest in peace to him. But he had a lot of sons, man, and they are all tough guys. And Ryan could box really well. Ryan had slick submissions, tricky stuff. He wasn't much of a takedown guy, but, you know, out of all guys that I've trained with in Schuylkill County, I think if Ryan took it seriously and had like a wrestling game, that Ryan would have been a pretty damn good fighter.
Yeah.
Out of all the guys I've ever trained with, Ryan's the only one that made me feel nervous when he was mad. He knew that, but Ryan, at the same time, Ryan knew I was a psycho too. He called me that. So hearing that from another psycho,
you gotta be
kind of
crazy
good.
if you want to take a profession up where you're gonna fist fight somebody. I mean, you can't.
Yeah.
Even the cool, calm, and collect guys, they're crazy. Like Carlos Condit, Rory McDonald. Like Rory McDonald looks like a science teacher, but you would never want to fight him. He would kill you. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
actually, if you follow Rory McDonald, I used to hate that guy because he reminded me of a serial killer, just like a cold-blooded. I don't care about the innocent. I'll kill anybody.
Yeah.
But recently, after his last fight, he just had a 5-round fight last week, buddy. iPad? Okay, sorry, my son is chiming in here.
Okay.
He wants me to put the iPad up on. So, here you go, Bubba. So, basically, Rory McDonald has become a Christian, and in his last fight, he did a 5-round fight against John Fitch, who he should have mopped up easily, and he won a close decision, and they're like, what's going on with you? And he's just like, basically, I don't have the sadistic will to hurt anyone anymore like I used to. Because I used to have all this anger and this hatred inside of me, and that's what I believed in. I believed in hurting people to make myself feel good, but now that I have a relationship with Christ Jesus, I don't feel that anymore. He's like, it's really weird for me. He's like, because that's not who I was most of my life. Who I was most of my life was a fighter, a killer.
Yeah, his war with Robbie Lawler was unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
I honestly, after that fight was over, I was like, these guys just literally took 5 years off their career.
That was just come to Jesus meeting. I think in that fight you got hit in the head and saw the light.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
Uriah Hall reminds me of that too, where he kind of has that. He can. If Uriah Hall, I felt like if he went into any fight and just decided he was going to win that fight, he's a tough guy to stop. But when he hit that guy in the Ultimate Fighter with that spin heel kick, and he was hearing the guy making noise, he never seen a human hit before, and he kind of really got an idea of his power. I think that's a huge testament to why he's not as dominant as he should be, because I honestly think he's afraid to hurt people. I could be completely wrong. That's just my opinion on it. But like that day of the Ultimate Fighter where he was just staring at that guy after he hit that kick, I think it changed him. I really do.
Well, maybe it did. I've actually trained with Uriah, and the guy that he knocked out, his name is Bubba McDaniel. That's one of my buddies too. I don't know him real good, but I've met him a couple times. And Uriah Hall, I've trained with him alongside Emmanuel Newton, and we were in Hollywood training with Chow. His name's Chow, I believe, or no, Richard Sean. Richard Sean does like all of the stunts in all the top movies. Richard Sean's the stuntman. He's been a stuntman in, I think, Blade. He's been a stuntman in Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, he's been a stuntman in a lot of big time movies where he is actually choreographing the fighting scene.
Yeah.
So we were actually in the room where he choreographed the fight scenes on trampolines, and we were running full speed, jumping on his trampoline and doing a flying knee, like seriously, like 15 feet in the air into like a foam pit.
That's pretty cool.
And he was like, you know, nobody really trains like this. This is activating your explosiveness, your full athletic potential. Like, if you're gonna fly through the air this high with a knee, then when you're actually in a fight and your killer instinct is kicked on, when you decide to go for it, you're going to go for it, and you're going to land a killer knockout. And what's interesting is maybe a year or two after that, I trained with Uriah Hall. He did that same exact flying knee on Gegard Mousasi, who was no slouch. He's actually the champ in Bellator right now.
He's an
and
animal.
Knocked him out. Yeah, he knocked him out with that.
Yeah, you're right. I always been a huge fan of Uriah Hall. He's one of the guys that I just, every time he's on, I try to tune into that fight. I got to the point where I stopped picking favorite fighters, but he's one of there's a handful that I still have. but he's always a guy I always look forward to fighting. I just, at any moment, he can throw something insane, and I have always been a big fan of his.
Yeah. Well, I just want to mention this, like, the guys that really influenced my fighting style was, number one, an MMA fighter, in my opinion, in his prime, Fedor Emelianenko.
Mm-hmm.
But a guy that nobody really talks about was the guy that influenced Fedor's striking and his fighting ability was Igor Ice Cold Vovchanchin.
Mm-hmm.
Both of these guys are from Ukraine. Well, back then it was USSR, so it was Russia. But they're both Fedor was actually 5'9", Igor was 5'8", and they were both the heavyweight kings for 10 years plus. Both of them. And Igor fought bare knuckle most of his career. Igor fought 3 guys in one night that were 300 pounds plus, all 3 of them, and knocked all 3 of them out in one night to win the championship. Like, you know, whether these guys were on steroids or not didn't matter because back then everybody was on it, you know?
Yeah.
And so it was an equal playing field. But GSP, the way he changes levels, he punches to shots. He really influenced my fight game. Dan Henderson, who I actually train with, his crouching style, his fighting stance is literally just like Rocky Marciano, who's one of my favorite heavyweight boxers of all time. But then Mike Tyson, like, I know it's cliche to say, but Mike Tyson, his killer instinct, his mechanics alone, how tight, how precise he was, just art. It was just such an art form. And I would literally think I was Mike Tyson when I get in a fight, and I would just crush people.
I just watched a video where he's talking to some young fighter, and he's just kind of showing him like a dip right hook swing, and he still threw that like a light, and he's obviously not in the shape he ever once was before, but he was just kind of showing him and like doing the head movement into the right hook, and he threw it still lightning fast, and I was just like, Tyson would still murder people. Like he was just so so gifted, and it just goes to show that if you get hooked up in the wrong crowd and get in the wrong mind state, it can ruin such an amazing ability.
Yeah, I mean, if you put 4-ounce gloves on his old self right now, put him against Daniel Cormier, who's the heavyweight champion, and he just knew how to stuff a takedown. He went out and he stuffed that first double leg and just fired a hook and uppercut and landed. He's the heavyweight champion of the world right then and there.
He very well could be, yeah. If he, like I said, if he could stop that takedown, because Cormier is very talented at getting that takedown.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, I stood next to Daniel Cormier. I got a photo with him. That fella is not even 5'9".
Yeah.
So it's amazing. It's amazing that he's a heavyweight champion and the light heavyweight champion all at the same time.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. Well, he's technically not the light heavyweight anymore because John Jones took that back. True. But yeah, how you were saying Hendo, I've always been a huge fan of Hendo. Hendo was I always liked watching his fights. What was your introduction to MMA? What was your first fight you watched that you were like, oh my God, I love this sport?
Well, like I said, I was obsessed with professional wrestling, so Ken Shamrock came over and paved the way for me.
Yep.
Tank Abbott, Dan Severn. Actually, my first UFC fighter I ever trained with was Dan Severn at Extreme Fitness during a seminar. I got to hold his belts, and I got to give him his first meatball sandwich, as he called it. Because he's from, I think, Minnesota.
Yeah.
So he's kind of Canadian. He's like, what is this? I was like, it's a meatball sandwich. He's like, meatball sandwich. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, and he ate it. He's like, very good.
Yeah, my first pay-per-view was UFC. I think it was, I'm trying to remember, it's been so long. I think it was 42. Was it around 42 when Tito and Ken met for the first time, and and I was hooked ever since. And I remember, I couldn't watch it on TV, and I couldn't afford pay-per-views because I was still a high school kid. But I remember saying, like, I was huge into professional wrestling, and I was like, yo, I remember reading all the articles, and they're like, the Ultimate Fighter Season 1 is going to debut 2005 on FX. And I was like, I'm telling you, this sport hits. I don't give a shit about professional wrestling anymore. This is my new sport. And yeah, the Ultimate Fighter Season 1, and then it started becoming live on TV. And then at that point in time, I'm out of high school. I got a job. I paid for every single pay-per-view. And I've slowly fell off as a MMA fan. Like, I'll still pick up a fight here or there. I'll go back and watch stuff. But a lot of the stuff now, there's just some of it that just it's a huge turnoff to me. And I think the biggest turnoff is actually UFC, to be honest with you. Like, I catch myself watching Bellator more. Like, some of the stuff that UFC is doing, man, is just it puts such a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, I mean, it's really watered down. It's getting super I don't know. It's kind of got such a corrupt feel to it.
Yeah, and everything's behind a paywall. I mean, it doesn't sound like much, but it just annoys me that I'm willing to pay for a subscription for UFC Fight Pass, and they don't even care about it anymore. Like, now I have to go pay a UFC ESPN app, and then I got to go pay for all the pay-per-views, and then still have the UFC. It's just too much. Like, I was someone who back in the day I would pay for 2 pay-per-views a month that were $70 a piece, and now it's just the point where like they're just, to me, they took a step backwards. It bothers me. I used to have one of my shows that I did here. I used to have 5 shows. Was called 10-8 Round, and the guys who ran it, they just decided they wanted to take it in a different direction. So I said, hey guys, keep the name, go do what you got to do. And they're actually rebranding it and figuring it out now. But we did MMA shows for a while there. It was me, Tanner Martin, and Josh Rosinski.
Nice.
Yeah, good. And then we picked up a buddy, a friend of mine, Tyler. But it was a cool show. We had a lot of fun with it. Some creative differences, but you know, Tanner and Josh decided they're going to take it in a different direction. But yeah, maybe I'll hook you up with those guys, and they can you can call into their show and talk MMA with them one night.
Good. Well, I know Rudd.
Yeah.
Rudd trained with me, and we trained together, I should say, and then we palled around for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But we mentioned some of my favorite fighters, and we mentioned a little bit about my career. So I just wanted to clarify some things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 1-2 as a pro. It's not ideal.
Yeah.
First fight I had was a 10-second knockout. Second fight I had, I ripped my knee apart 3 weeks before the fight, and I didn't train at all. I went into the fight, and I was beating the guy. I hit him really hard in the beginning and whatnot, and he didn't throw a single punch the whole fight, and I covered up, and he literally punched my hand into my face, and it sent me flying, but it didn't send me flying because it turned my brain off. It just sent me flying because I don't think I was braced for it. Like, when like when somebody comes up and shoves you really hard and you go flying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, literally, as soon as I landed on my ass, and I literally spun away from him to try to get to my feet, and he came and punched right in the back of the head. You can see on the video, punched right in the back of the head, and that stunned me. And then he cracked me 13 more times on the side of the head, and I got to clarify this, man. I shattered my right wrist in football when I was 17 years old, 7th week against Muhlenberg, first play at kickoff. Shattered that. Never got any work on it. So, like, I don't have a good range of motion on my right hand.
Mm-hmm.
If I post out with my fingers to do like a traditional push-up, I can't do it without my arm collapsing. So what I have to do is I have to do knuckle push-ups.
Yeah.
So if you watch that fight, after he jumps on me and he has a tight waist on me, he's hitting me with his left hand. I'm on my feet and I'm on my hands. And the only reason why I can't stand up is because he has pressure on my back. My mid-back is a tight waist on me. And I have my left palm is on the mat, but my right hand is made into a fist. And I'm driving off the ground with my fist. And he's on my left side. So he's on my left side with a right hand tight waist, and he's driving me toward the cage where I'm based out with a fist, not fingers. So naturally what happens is your wrist will roll inward and your arm will collapse. And that's exactly what happened. If you watch the fight, I was posted out on my knuckles, and he's driving all his weight into me as he's hitting me, and my hand collapses underneath my body. I smacked my face off the mat, and I jumped to my feet before he even got to his feet, and the referee's waving the fight off. And the first thing I said to the referee is, "It's October 2nd. It's Friday. I'm good to go." And he's like, "Dude, fight's over. You smacked your head off the mat." I was like, "Son of a bitch."
Yeah.
This is what it's like to be TKO'd. And I immediately ran over my opponent, picked him up over my head, and he said to me, "Put me down. You're making me look bad."
Oh, so that's just
and like, yeah, I had to laugh it off. I mean, later on, I was showering by myself and I was crying about it because I was like, "Damn, this is embarrassing." Like, I was not knocked out, and now people are saying I'm knocked out. This is embarrassing, dude. Like, was I rocked? Shit, yeah, dude. 14 solid punches to the head with 4-ounce gloves, but like, that's not me.
Yeah,
I'm the guy that's going to get up, and I'm the guy that's going to continue to fight.
Now what was that first fight? That fight under what promotion?
That was under, the first one was under Gladiator. The one I'm talking about now was under Bama, and then the third fight was under Bellator.
Yeah, how did you get the call for? I mean, Bellator is in my opinion is the runner up to UFC. I mean, if you talk,
it is
major UFC mixed martial arts competitors or major mixed martial arts brand right now, Bellator is it. Like, I think right now is the time for Bellator to really get hot and take over this idea, because they're the only one that's on cable television and are not behind a paywall. So I think if Bellator plays their cards right, they can definitely put a dent in this UFC in their dominance of their brand. But how did you get that call from Bellator?
Well, I mean, I live in California. I live in the mecca of fighting, and just the mecca of just everything: entertainment, sports, etc. And so I train with guys who are in Bellator. I train with guys who are in the UFC, lots of them. Basically, I could drive 10, 20 miles and go to a gym where there's a UFC contracted fighter, and a big one. And I've lived out here for 5 years, and I've been plagued with these injuries. They only get worse. And so I just never became a fighter I wanted to be. I was never active as much as I wanted to be. I was never prepared to fight top level. I mean, do I have the potential? Do I have the ability? Yes. Oh, my God, yes. I firmly believe that if or when I get healthy, that I could beat anybody. Firmly. I don't care what weight class, honestly, either, because you know this. If you hit somebody proper, doesn't matter how big they are, how little they are, they're going to go down. Mm-hmm. You know this. If you get leverage on somebody and you have the ability to pick a grown 260, 270-pound man up over your head and slam him, that you can do just about anybody. And you know this, if you're strong enough and skilled enough for submissions, that you can capture a submission on anybody. And I can do all those things. And I'm crazy enough to believe in myself. Some people say delusional enough. I have the athletic ability. I just have joint issues, like you said. Mm-hmm. Like I have a chronic form of arthritis. I have 5 or 6 different spinal conditions now. And this is not me making excuses, man. This is me telling you exactly what it is.
Yeah, you're being real with yourself.
And I've had plenty of people doubt me, and I've had plenty of people say, "Oh, you're just using your injury as an excuse." But then I've actually seen those people get injured, and they turn into the biggest pansies I've ever seen. You know what I mean? Like, I'm out there with 2 knee braces on, and my knees are buckling and training, and I'm still at work and people, and just, you know, and it's just like, oh, it makes me so mad and so motivated at the same time. It's like, God, give me a working body. Yeah. I have the muscle fiber, you know what I mean? I have the will. Give me the bone structure. Give me the joints, please.
Yeah, I had that same exact feeling for the longest time. I was like, man, if I was just blessed without this disorder, I mean, I always had a strong mental game when it came to sports and working, and had a decent work ethic when it came to that. I just was unfortunate with the bad body. So I definitely feel where you're coming from there.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you're interviewing me specifically because of that. Mm-hmm. It's you know, I had a lot of physical issues growing up, genetic, and then from trauma, that like physical trauma that I just pushed through and thought was normal. And then as you get older, you're like, that's not normal at all.
Yeah, it just gives out.
You know,
I got to the point where I can play a full court basketball game, and if I knew my body well enough that I knew what not to do, that I would dislocate something. And then it gets to the point now where the other night I actually dislocated my joint, my shoulder in my sleep, and woke up to my arm out of socket, and I didn't know until I woke up. Whoa. Like, it's like I've dislocated pulling the gallon of milk out of the fridge. Like, it's just so random now. Like, as you get older, it just falls apart, and then the depression and the anxiety and all that kicks in.
Oh yeah, dude,
it's horrible. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't get depression like I used to, but I can if I let it happen. But I mean, I get the worry. I get the which the worry ends up leading to the depression.
Yep.
I get the worry. I get the boredom.
Yeah. So with the Bellator, so you know you're fighting for Bellator. They give you your opponent. What's that process like for someone who's from an outsider's perspective? How does that matchmaking go down, or what are some of the behind the scenes things when it comes to that?
So at Dan Henderson's gym, I met Jane Estiaco, who is a matchmaker for Bellator, a couple years ago. And I was like, hey, Jane, get me a fight. I'm like, I'll fight anybody. I'll fight a heavyweight. And she's like, okay. And then like last year, I got back into training. I trained with Sam Alvey, Dan Henderson, Sean Strickland, Fernando Gonzalez.
You said Ben Henderson?
Dan Henderson.
Oh, okay.
You know, all these top guys.
Yep.
And I'm like, because I'm doing what I'm doing to them, I'm like, oh, I'm made for this. I can do this really well. And I don't think I would fight if I didn't know I could be a champ. I would just kind of be like, yeah, screw that. And so I had her phone number for a while, and there's another guy I train with. The gym's called Fight Syndicate. His name is Bo King. I love Bo.
Mm-hmm.
I'm closer to Bo than anybody I've trained with out here. Bo's just really friendly, really open, and he's the owner and the operator of his gym, so he teaches the striking, he teaches the grappling. So you don't get much of that from just about anybody. And so he would give me a lot of his undivided attention. I didn't have to fight for it. I didn't have to pay for it. And Bo King saw what I could do. And Bo King also knew, like, this guy's injured. That's why he's not at his full potential. And I was like, you know, if I'm going to do something, if I get an idea, I'm going to do it right away. And basically, when I was training at Henderson's gym, like the beginning of last year, I was doing really well. And then one day, just messing around with Sam Alvey, just playing with him, he just like kind of shoved my head down, like stiff-armed my head, and then I tried to lift my head up, and I couldn't lift my head up anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this extreme stiff pain in between my shoulder blades. And that went on for like 6 months. I didn't train for like 6 months, and then I finally got diagnosed. And the chiropractor was like, after doing a compression maneuver on my back, a compression. Remember that word, compression, cracking on my back. He rereads the x-ray for the second time the week after because I kept complaining that my pain was getting worse in the back. And he says, buddy, you have an old compression fracture in your spine. I'm like, my spine? He's like, yeah. And I'm kind of like doing the Mike Tyson, like, spinal?
Yeah, spinal?
Broken back? And he's like, yeah, you have a broken back. Your back is broken. And I'm like, at this time I'm 29 years old, I'm like, my back is broken? I'm like, well, add that to the list of spinal issues. So my T6 was cracked. And the cartilage between T7, T8, T6, and T7 was just like withering away. So eventually I started training with Bo, like late last year. I started training with Bo. I was cracking the mitts after getting some stem cells in my back and some stem cells in my knees. And I wore the knee braces, and I was just like, you know what? I am definitely not 100%. But if I land one of these shots on anybody, they're going down. If I get underneath anybody, they're going down. If I get a hold of anybody's neck or their arm or their shoulder, I'm going to beat them.
Mm-hmm.
That's the mentality I had, you know? So I kept telling Bo, you know, Bo, you believe in me. Bo, get me a fight with Bellator. Bo, get me a fight with Bellator. Because Bellator had an event coming up here right in my town, right in my city, at Pachaga Casino. And, you know, I'm going to get really real here. I'm an open person.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to scare anybody or make anybody feel mad at me for any reason. But, you know, I've had recurring thoughts of suicide my entire life. And one day, just fighting. My wife and I we're loyal to each other. We fight all the time. We're both, you know, we're both very traumatized people.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just, you know, sick of my life, as I get every now and then. And it's not like one of those depressions where you're like sad and you sit around and you cry or you just don't move. It's one of those like depressions where you're just numb to everything. You're just like, what is the point? And I have a pull-up bar in my closet. Hold on a second. You want your binky, buddy? Okay. At least I found my kid's binky. His pacifier. He's 2.5, and we're almost 2.5. He still wants a pacifier. But you were telling, like, how you were saying to me that, like, your physical limitations cause, mental, spiritual harm to you, depression, anxiety, me being as hyper and as crazy as I am and as, like, fun, I always want to have fun, and having a body that doesn't let me do that, what do you think God does with me? And then, like, having trouble at home and, like, and financial issues, just being my crazy self, it's hard to manage all that. And some days, it's not that I want to die some days, it's just like, I just don't want to do this anymore. I want to relax.
Mm-hmm.
But like one day I was, I grabbed my Bible. Like I said, I'm not really much of a religious guy. I do believe in God. I do believe in Christ for whatever that is. But I grabbed my Bible. And I've had many spiritual experiences in my life, which is why I believe in God. I don't believe in God because somebody made me believe in God. Mm-hmm. I don't believe in God because somebody taught me. Just more so I was led to the light. And if anybody asks, I'll tell them the reasons why. I'll be completely honest. But there I was in the closet with my Bible that I had a lot of good moments with. And I started yelling at God. So like, well, if you're real, you better help me now. And I wasn't going to actually do it, and I knew that. But part of me wanted that. Mm-hmm. So I took one of my ties, and I wrapped it around my pull-up bar and put it around my neck and kind of like let myself dangle there. And then I realized how stupid I was, and I got so mad at myself, and I ripped it off, and I started yelling. Then I had this like calmness over me, and I kind of just sat down, and I was okay after that. Mm-hmm. And I was telling God, show me. And like the next day, I get a job promotion, and I get a call from Bo, like a text message from Bo, and he's like, "Yo, Bellator called. You want to fight or not?" I was like, "My prayers are answered." I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And I got my opponent, Bolton Rafta, 7-0 amateur MMA, 7-0 amateur boxing, 205-pound all-star stud in boxing, wrestling.
Bellator has very high hopes for him.
Oh, yeah. And I was just like, this is the perfect challenge. I'm like, this is the perfect challenge for myself. This is the perfect opportunity to get back into fighting, to feel really good about myself, to win a Bellator contract, to, get a contract where I'm making six figures with fighting and then making six figures in my job, and I'm thinking like I can make like $200,000 a year, having a job I love and having a career in fighting that I love, Mm-hmm. All this is going through my head, and I'm like, the risk totally outweighs totally outweighs the failure. You know what I mean? Like the reward totally outweighs the risk is what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
So, I prepared for it. I went in with full confidence.
Now, the lead up, before we get into the fight night, the lead up to that fight, a lot of the stuff I was reading and looking into, it seemed like, and this is not my words, this is what I kind of just got from, obviously being a mixed martial arts fan for a while. It seemed like he was like, I don't want to use the term golden boy as if he's being handed to him, because that's not the case at all. But he's definitely someone he's a top prospect on Bellator's eyes. And
they thought.
Yeah, and it seemed like they were putting you in there to be like that. Yeah, you were a feeder fight for him, and
I knew that.
And
I knew that.
How was it going? Now, obviously, fighting a guy in a smaller promotion or local promotions and pros and semi-pros, that's one thing. But when you hit that big fight and you're going to be on your first Bellator card and you can go online or watch MMA Weekly or listen to MMA radio and you hear your opponent and that not so much trash talk or maybe the trash talk. I didn't really look into how much what was said before the fight between you guys, but MMA is a point in time now where people, they know if they talk shit, they're going to get more eyes on them and they're going to get more cards. What type of opponent was this that you came into?
Well, when I initially saw his interviews, I was like, I really like this guy. I really respect this guy. Mm-hmm. as a fight fan, I'm like, I would root for this guy if I wasn't fighting him. But
Yeah.
this guy, he looks good. He looks strong, powerful, very symmetrical. He's a handsome dude. He's got a great resume. He's from Pennsylvania. He's undefeated. Like, this is the kind of guy I want to get on the bandwagon and watch go destroy everybody.
Yeah.
You know? So, like, I know that, and I'm like, okay, so if I fight him and for some reason I lose, okay, not that big of a deal. He goes on, he wins the world title. Cody Vidal got the fight, right? I go out and I beat him, and then for some reason, I never fight again, and then he comes back, bounces back, and does everything I just said he would do and wins the world title. Well, Cody Vidal beat him.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, or if I do beat him and then I continue and I win the world title, it's like either way, it's a win-win for me.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Because I know me, I know what I'm going through, I know what I'm living with, and I know that I'm the underdog.
Yeah.
You know, I know that everybody's down me.
Yeah. At the end of the day, regardless, we'll get into what happened that fight, but at the end of the day, no matter what, because you're always going to have that person that's going to be like, oh, even when I talked MMA to other people, and I would bring up Pat. They're like, yeah, Pat went and got knocked out in the first round, but I was like, yeah, but the guy Pat fought, like, it was the same type of thing. Pat was a feeder. And it was his first promotion. It was Elite XC. It was like their kickoff show. It was like the first time CBS ever had a mixed martial arts fight on. Like, if you research the history of CBS or whatever that promotion was, like their first MMA fight they ever had on TV, that was Murphy. And no. Like,
you were saying Pat. You meant John, right?
John Murphy. Yeah. There's not many people that are can turn around and say at the end of the day, like, they fought for Bellator. Like, you can say that. Like, that's a, regardless of win, lose, or draw. You stepped in that cage. That door was locked. It was you and one other human being doing something on a national broadcast television. And not many people ever will say they did that. And regardless of how it went down, dude, I'm proud of you for doing it. That's a scary fucking thing to do.
Well, thanks, brother. I appreciate it. It's like, can you swim from sharks with one leg?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Can you be your best in battle if you go into battle and you're leaking blood everywhere?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, some of the best fighters and athletes actually are better when they're wounded.
Yeah.
And for me, I really didn't think too much of it. Like, I save all the thoughts. Like, now that I'm wiser, I save all the thoughts and all the emotions and for the fight right before the fight. And, like, dude, trust me, the nervousness hit right before I went out. I mean, I was singing Lauren Daigle's song out loud to God while my hands are getting wrapped, full of a room full of men who are all feeling the same way I'm feeling, some sort of way. They're all about to go fight, and I have tears running down my face, and I have my coach with me. I have Emmanuel Newton with me, who brought me out here, who, like, literally prophesied almost everything that would happen for me, and it happened. Literally like a prophet. It's crazy. And, I just, all these emotions are going through me, and then when it's time to step out there, it just all went away, and I was just like, I'm in a fight, and he's throwing punches at me, he's hitting me, and but he's not hitting me clean. He's just taking them on the gloves, and I'm like, all right, I'm feeling it. And, like, my game plan was to go and pressure him right away, because nobody else did. And I went to go do that, and he was just actually backing up and running away a lot when I would engage. Whereas when he engaged, I stood in the pocket, because as a shorter guy, as a guy who hits really hard, and as a guy who likes to take people down, I want to be close.
Mm-hmm.
So the last thing I'm going to do, as a shorter guy is try to stay on the outside, right?
Yep.
I'm never going to land, and I'm going to get picked apart. So, I mean, literally, we can get into more details. You can ask more questions, but literally right when the knee tore, I was throwing an overhand as I slipped his jab.
Yep.
So his jab bypassed my head movement, and I dropped my shoulder and rotated my hand over. And if you look at the replay, I think they took the video down of that angle, but my hand was coming right at the back of his head, and he actually turned his head away, exposing the back of his head. And I'm telling you right now, I was at the point where I was like, dude, I got to knock this guy out, because this guy is coming, and he's coming hard. And when I threw that, if that would have landed, maybe that knocked him out, but was going to hurt him, drop him, rock him, and whatever came after that was going to kill him. But my knee tore in that exact moment.
Yeah, I mean, Tors, I mean, it looked like it exploded.
It felt like that, because that's exactly what happened.
Was there a noise with that? Like, a lot of people watch
Hell
this.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like you could physically see it on the camera. Like, it just went, and it was.
It jumped out of my knee sleeve.
Yeah, you were wearing a knee sleeve, and you can see physically through the knee sleeve that your knee was gone. Like, it was gone. And it was heartbreaking. Like I don't know you personally, just, you know, I knew, you know, we were talking before that, and I went back and watched it. I was like, man, like the pain, like, and immediately you fell right to your butt. You grabbed your knee. You didn't even care he was going to rain down shots in your face. Like, you kind of just took them.
Oh, when he hit me with that only shot, Anthony, the only shot he actually landed flush the whole fight, it was right in the forehead. It literally, at that point, felt like somebody was hitting me with pillows, and I was just like, literally, like, get the hell off of me, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like talking to the ref, I'm like, get him off me, my knee. And you know, he got up and walked away. He's like screaming, I'm the champ. And I got up on the cage and I was like waving at him, like, dude, I'm fine. I have a knee injury. This guy did not TKO me. Don't give him credit.
Yeah.
And then I looked at the referee. I was like, you know my knee's hurt. I'm like, do not call it a TKO. So they call it a TKO by injury. I'm like, that should be a no contest. But at the same time, me being a respectful, loving guy,
yeah,
I'm glad he got the win. Glad he got the win for his debut, because if he didn't get the win, he wouldn't have got that $4,000 bonus.
Yeah. Yeah, it sucked. I mean, I could see your argument with the TKO, but if like, I don't know, it's hard. It's tough to say. Like, a no contest. Yeah, I mean, there's a definite argument for that. If you get poked in the eye and the fight ends, it's no contest. But it was just such a weird thing because it came off because obviously if you watch it in slow motion, you can clearly see you slipped a punch, you were throwing it overhand right, and your knee kind of gave out as you were doing it. But if a referee's job is not easy. I hate when people always criticize the ref. Oh, early stoppage or bad stoppage. But I mean, it's happening so quick, and they're out there looking out for safety. It's not an easy. It's not an easy thing, and that sport is just it's a tough thing to call, man. But yeah. So initially,
well, you know,
the initial pain for that, like burning pain, heat. What is that? What's going through your head?
Well, it was nothing new, man. I mean, my knee always blew out, but this time it was pretty damn bad. Like, it happened like this prior to my second pro fight that I told you about, where I didn't train for like the freaking 3 weeks leading up to the fight. I didn't train, I didn't do cardio, I didn't spar, and I just went in there, and I went in there nervous. I went in there knowing that if I didn't end the fight early, I was not going to last long because I wasn't going to have the energy to. I just knew that, you know.
Yeah.
And that's not a good feeling to have going into a fight. This fight, I didn't have that mentality. I just went in there. I was just like, you know what? I want to pressure this guy. I'm not going to think too much about him. I'm just going to pressure him. I'm going to hit him, and I'm going to stuff his takedown, which I did. And I'm going to land on him. And I did land on him. I did hit him with the right hand after he shot on me and got me in his cage, and he backed off and left a nasty mark on his eye. And after that, he kind of was just playing the distance game. But, yeah, dude, I mean, honestly, I didn't cry about it. When I was alone, I didn't cry about it. I've never regretted it, and here's why. My knee's been like this for a long time. I was 17 years old when I blew my knee out in the state championship. Never got it diagnosed properly. The not-so-nice people at Pottsville High School decided to give me an X-ray and not an MRI, because they probably didn't want to pay for it and pay for the surgery. Because anybody in sports who knows, sees a leg twist like that and then become the size of somebody's head, knows it's definitely tissue.
What position did you play in high school football?
Nose guard.
Nose guard.
And I will non-egotistically say I was the number one nose guard in the state of Pennsylvania. Statistically, that was proven true. I was first team All-State, had more tackles, sacks, tackles for loss than any other defensive player my senior year. I was only 180 pounds. Yeah. 190 pounds. So, I mean, you know, without having said all that, I injured my knee when I was 17. I didn't get an MRI. There was no diagnosis of any tissues torn. And then for the rest of my life from that period, for the next 13 years in MMA, especially during the wrestling phase, I would always pop my knee. and it would always get mad stiff on the inside and the outside where the MCL and the LCL connect. The plateau, it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Where the tibia, the lower leg, and the femur, the upper leg, connect. They connect with the MCL and the LCL. And those basically are bridges of tissue that connect those bones together. And those areas are always locked out, always tight. And if you were to take your fists and put them knuckle to knuckle and move them left or right, that's literally how my knee shifts. And knee shifts left and right, and it just dislocates. And if it dislocates with enough force, I sprain my MCL and my LCL, almost tearing them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my MCL and my LCL, yeah, almost tearing them. I never had a true diagnosis of my LCL being torn until after this fight. They said your LCL is gone. It looks like it's been gone for a long time. You have a grade 2 MCL sprain. Your MCL is almost completely tore off, which referee John McCarthy, who was commentating the fight, clearly saw that right away.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was cartilage damage, etc. But even after the surgery, the surgeon who, I don't care if he's listening to this or not, is not doing his investigative research to make sure that my knee is perfect, because all he did was repair the ACL. He didn't address all the other issues in my knee. He didn't address the issues in my right hip, which goes hand in hand with my knee issue.
Mm-hmm.
He's just telling me, oh, you'll be fine. But I'm like, I've been like this for a long time, man. I'm not going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
So I have high hopes, but at this point, they're just high hopes. Even if I have the strongest ACL in the world, if there's other issues in my knee, I'll probably just tear my ACL again.
Yeah. Now, when you go out in a Bellator card and something like that happens, who foots the bill? Is it a Bellator thing because you're under you're one of their fighters, or how does that work?
Well, they told me to use my insurance company first, Cigna,
mm-hmm.
and then they told me to put them down a secondary. And so far, I don't have any bills, but at the same time, I haven't had it confirmed that I am not going to pay anything. I've had people tell me, I've had the people I'm working with tell me, oh, yeah, you don't owe anything for surgery. But I haven't actually had a document stating that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have all these guys coming out of the woodwork trying to sell me medical equipment that was promised to me for free. And then my rehab, if it's not compensated through Bellator's insurance, I'm going to have to pay $70 per session with rehab. And the minimum rehab is 3 times a week. The ideal rehab is 5 times a week. So you can imagine, anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 a month just in rehab alone if I have to pay it out of pocket.
Yeah, that's just something I definitely want for people to hear, because I think when people see, Minersville, local guy Cody, fighting for Bellator and he gets hurt, they're like, oh, don't worry, he's under, like, you're still working a full-time job and still trying to do this career as a fighter. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like you're a top level guy like a John Jones who doesn't have to go and punch the time clock. You know what I mean? Like, it's a testament to who you are as a person that you're still pursuing your dream and still working. You know what I mean?
Yeah, people don't realize that. Like, I do this. I've been not poor my whole life, but I've been paycheck to paycheck kind of guy my entire life. The most money I've ever had saved up was $5,000, and every time I get $5,000 saved up, knock on wood, it seems like a catastrophic event happens where I have to dump out my entire savings account, and then it comes the depression and the hopelessness of I am never not going to be rich, but I'm never even going to be comfortable financially.
Mm-hmm.
That alone is just a terrible, terrible, terrible feeling, a terrible atmosphere to be living in.
Yeah, absolutely. And California is definitely not cheap to live in.
It's the most expensive state, my friend. Now you couple that with the injuries and all of the issues that injuries bring to someone like me, and you're a father, which nobody made me a father, so I'm not going to say that. I love being a father. But you couple all those elements together, and I am at odds. I'm at odds. But I like that, because like I look at myself like a modern day Rocky. Either I become or prove who I am or not isn't as important as trying. And I realized that from this last fight is that I had no regrets, man.
Mm-hmm.
I went into a fight for Bellator, second MMA promotion in the world, fought against the number one guy I could possibly fight against at 205, mind you, when I was only weighing 195. While I was only weighing 195, I started my training camp at 215. I didn't realize that I had the flu prior to the fight. I was going to the bathroom left and right for like the week prior.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any other symptoms. And then after the fight, my entire family was doing the same thing for like a week straight. No symptoms, no fever, just boom, just bathroom, throwing up, puking, pooping, peeing, like left and right.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't hold any food down. So I went in that fight at 195, but that weight doesn't matter to me. Like, I can constantly go beat up a heavyweight at weighing 170 if I, attack him first, hit him hard, get him out of there.
Mm-hmm.
None of that stuff matters to me. But I'll say this, man. Adversity is what makes a person a fighter. Like, if I was to dominate everybody, I would always have that question in my mind. Am I fighting quality opponents? But if I'm to struggle in my life, and if I'm to struggle in training, if I'm to struggle in fighting, but still get the victory, or even in these so-called defeats, I feel a sense of worth that nothing and nobody else can give me but myself. So I agree 100% with you.
Yeah. So now that you're going to rehab and get your knee healthy, is getting back and fighting something in your mind, or what's your next step after this?
I want to train. I want to fight. I want to destroy everybody. I want to beat everybody I fight. Of course, everybody wants to do that. But it's not that I want it. It's that, look, I've been through so much. I'm not quitting.
Mm-hmm.
You live one life. If I die right now, yeah, it's going to be bad for my kids. But I believe firmly that what I've been through in my life, my kids will make it. And I want to be there for my kids for as long as I can be.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody's going to love them more than I can. Nobody's going to protect them more than I can. So don't get me wrong when I say that, but I have this spirit, this warrior spirit I cannot escape. I've tried to. Like, I've wanted to end my life on multiple occasions or just get away from it, you know? I've wanted to be lazy, and I've been lazy because of these injuries, I've wanted to get away from this scary responsibility that is required whenever greatness calls you. And that's what's happening. Greatness is calling me. But in the end, that greatness really doesn't even matter.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, it's just all about living in the moment and being happy and loving your life and loving the people that matter to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you're what age are you now?
30.
30. So you just, we're being hypothetical here, looking to the future. You're 30, coming up, major knee surgery, your injuries. How many years in the fight game? Like, what's your plan for this? Like, your 5-year plan?
Well, I don't look at age. I used to look at age, but, looking at my dad, who I'm not close with, but looking at his energy levels and looking at how he's destroyed his body with his line of work and with drugs and stuff like that, I guarantee that guy could beat up 90% of the people in the world without any training. Like, the guy's energy levels are insane.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with new technology, with the stem cells and whatnot, I have high hopes. I'm going to go out to Las Vegas in June for the lady who hooked me up with the stem cells I first got. I had to pay for them, but this time they're going to be free. It's going to be a clinical trial. Basically, I'm going to be used as a guinea pig. They're going to shoot some stem cells in my knees.
I heard some insane things about stem cell. Like, some of the benefits that are incredible.
Well, stem cells are the most pure form of cells, and stem cells convert to whatever cells your body needs. So if you localize those stem cells with an injection or whatever way you're administering those, your body is going to recognize their stem cells there. They're going to make their own stem cells, release them into that area to match it, and then those stem cells will become cells to rebuild cartilage.
It's like Wolverine's healing factor. It's crazy.
Yeah. If you do it intravenously with an IV, and the stem cells circulate throughout your bloodstream and basically hunt for areas that
To
are
repair.
injured, and they will, so if you have, like, scarring in your heart or heart issues, it'll develop in the heart cells, and it'll get to work, and it'll do its job. Those are the clinical studies that are proven. HIPAA laws, it's a HIPAA violation to make these claims unless they're clinical studies.
Yeah.
Which is weird, because it's like, don't we get all of our information from clinical studies?
Mm-hmm. Now, what do you do for a living out in California now? Like, what is your normal 9 to 5?
I am the manager of a tree farm, and we are the largest box tree grower in the nation. We're called Moon Valley Nurseries. We grow, we nurse. So we grow the trees and the plants. We nurse them. We do landscape designs. We do the deliveries. We do the professional installations with our own licensed bonded crews, which nobody else does. And then we warranty our trees because of that. It's weird, dude. It's like the Walmart of box trees. Like, there's a bunch of trees in boxes. We put them on trucks. We show up, break the boxes off, and put them in the ground. I'm just a manager. I don't have to do anything that says it works, thank God.
Yeah. Now, when you made that jump to leave the Pottsville area and jump to California, was it to pursue mixed martial arts and fighting, or what was the call to go out there?
The call to go out there. I'm glad you say that. So it literally was a call. This is where it's going to get deep if you have time. I don't know how much time you have left.
No, you're good.
For hours. Okay. So I will say this, and I will say this only, and I won't get into details. My grandfather was murdered in front of me, and he raised me, and it wasn't like a. I'll say this detail. He was murdered with morphine and fentanyl, and it was money driven. And not only did that happen, I couldn't kind of believe it in front of me. I was, crying for hours, holding him while he was dying, choking on his own fluids. My father figure, laying in my arms, dying for hours, and all I could do was cry. And nobody would help. And there was a reason for that. And then, I was basically cheated. This isn't the main issue, and I don't want anybody to think that I'm mad at people because I didn't get money, but I was on the life insurance policy, and if anything, the fact that I didn't get a single penny out of it goes to show that it was money-driven. His death was money-driven. And so I had so much hatred inside of me. Not that I didn't already have enough hatred inside of me, but I had so much hatred inside of me, and I was working at SAPA to collect money to go back to Texas because I had left Texas where I was training with Johnny Hendricks Team Takedown. Johnny Hendricks was the champion at the time, beating up guys like GSP, and I had been working at a gym. Oh, yeah. I had been working at, actually, GSP landed a 1-2 at the end of the fight in a double leg that sealed the deal for me, even though I was a Johnny Hendricks training partner and fan. Had he not done that, Johnny Hendricks got the fight. But that 1-2 at the end of the takedown sealed the deal for me for GSP. But I agree with you. I mean, if you're going to go by rounds, he won more rounds. But if you go by just momentum alone, had that fight gone out any longer, GSP probably would have elbowed the shit out of him from top guard. And I say that because, Johnny Hendricks might be a great takedown artist, but he's terrible on the ground.
Yeah. We were watching his bare knuckle debut where he was fed a feeder guy and the guy dropped him pretty bad. It was a vicious.
That guy was actually a male gay porn star at one point.
The guy he fought?
Yeah, Dakota Cochran was a male gay porn star.
Oh wow!
At one point.
I wasn't aware of that.
So Johnny Hendricks, no offense, got knocked out by a gay porn star. Anyway.
Sorry, we got you off topic there. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was training with Johnny Hendricks, and, I was living in Texas. I was loving life. My grandfather was at home dying of cancer when he got diagnosed with 2 to 3 months to live. While I was vacationing there to see him, I was like, no. And that was actually the second time I moved home from Texas to be with him because that was his second diagnosis to where, he's going to die in a really short amount of time. But my grandfather, with his strong will, and defying stupid chemotherapy, ended up living a lot longer than that. And so I stayed behind with him. And I couldn't leave him again. I was just too selfish to leave. And he told me I could, but I wouldn't. And so basically there I am, living with my mom, who I never had a good relationship with, and she was helping me out. Living again with my mom after my grandfather dies, and just like so many bad thoughts in my head, so many bad emotions. And I'm like, I moved back to Pottsville, Pennsylvania, where life wasn't working for me after high school. I have so many ambitions, and I have so many talents, and I have so much belief in myself, and so many desires. And here I am, coming back home to be with family, to have them basically kill the person that needs them, the person that helped them survive all their adult lives, and then to be betrayed in more ways than one by like having. I was the only one. I was the oldest grandson. I was raised by them. I'm the only one that didn't get a penny out of that because I literally fought them. It was like literally like, dude, you guys killed him. And I went to the county coroner and everything like that. I went to the county coroner. The county coroner was like, how much money are we talking here? And I was like, why does that matter? He's like, because the cost is going to come out of your pocket to dig your grandfather up and to test him to see how much morphine and fentanyl is in his body. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you're going to have to exhume him? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, there's not any money in the world worth exhuming my grandfather. I'm like, let him rest. You know? So I didn't pray for a long time. I wanted to murder these people, like straight, seriously wanted to kill them. And I didn't pray for a while, and I talked to my buddy Patrick Smith, who I hadn't talked to in a long time, and he's like, what's going on? I told him how I was feeling. He's like, why don't you pray about it? He's like, you know when you pray, we've had this discussion before, he's like, you know when you pray, you're in your positive state of mind, that good, you know, a good life just comes to you. Opportunities just come to you. He's like, you just attract them. Mm-hmm. I'm like, you're right. And he's like, what can I pray for you? I'm like, okay. Because Patrick actually lived with me in Texas at Johnny Hendricks' striking coach's house. I lived with Stephen Wright, Patrick Smith, Zach Al-Hassan, who's undefeated in UFC right now. That was Johnny Hendricks' striking coach. I lived with these guys. And he was calling me from Texas that day, and he was saying to me, you know, let's pray. So he prayed for me. And then right after he prayed for me, I saw this movie trailer about a Christian pastor who was an pro MMA fighter. His name was Brian Warren. And Brian Warren was coincidentally the guy that let Chris Reedy live with him in California when Chris Reedy came out here and was training in California. Weird, right? Mm-hmm. So Brian Warren is this Christian pastor, and he's a pro MMA fighter, and there's this movie trailer about him. Right after I get done praying, and I'm like, it hit me. I'm like, all these professional athletes and professional fighters, whenever they win the title, they always proclaim their glory to God. And fighting is the most prideful sport you can do. It's one-on-one, and you're literally trying to kill another man for pride, for money, for prizes. I mean, there's nothing more prideful than that, really. And I'm like, and here they are giving all their glory to God. I'm like, even if God is real or not, and I posted this. I copied the movie trailer, and I posted it online, and I basically said, even if God is real or not, their belief in God is what fuels them and drives them, motivates them to fight their best against all the odds, against mortality itself, to win a fight and become the champion that they are. And I said, this is too good of a correlation. I have to give myself up to God. And I posted that. And I tagged Chris Weidman, I tagged Johnny Hendricks, and I tagged Emmanuel Newton, who was the light heavyweight champion of Bellator at the time. And I've never talked to that guy in my life. And he messaged me within a minute, and he said, our Heavenly Father put it on my heart to contact you. God is real. Here's my phone number. The light heavyweight champion of Bellator at the time said that to me within 5 minutes of me posting that.
That's crazy.
So I'm like, wow, the prayer's working. So I called him, and we talked for 4 hours. I got a plane ticket. I flew to California within 3 weeks. I stayed out here for 2 weeks, tore my knee, blew my knee out the 2 weeks I was training out here against Chase Gormley, who was 6'3", 330 pounds at the time. Shot a black double on me, and I posted on my right leg, and just boom, whole place hurt it. I was almost throwing up. It just felt so gross, man. And I was, there you go. My aspiration is to move out here and become a fighter. I shot. I go back home. I work in Sapa for a little bit. I'm like, dude, screw this. I'm moving to California. So I sold the truck my grandfather gave me, and I had just enough money to get out here. And then I started working. I had no money, and I was working. I was living with Emmanuel Newton I was living with Antonio and AJ McKee. Well, AJ McKee, if you're familiar with Bellator, is basically the Conor McGregor of Bellator. And, you know, I was living with these guys. And then all these spiritual occurrences started happening. Just confirming God is real. Just confirming God is working in my life. Whatever it is, it's real and it's working in my life. Like, all these opportunities are coming to me. And Emmanuel Newton said this to me, bro. He said, I foresee you living in Temecula, California. I was living with Emmanuel Newton in Long Beach, which is in L.A. Temecula is where I live now. How did that come about? My ex-girlfriend at the time, she had applied to jobs all up and down Southern California, and the only place that even gave her an interview was in a place called Rainbow, California, which literally borders Temecula. It literally is like you throw a stone, you're in Rainbow. And right when you drive in the Rainbow, there's this giant cross on top of the mountain. And I remember when I drove through Temecula to get there, and I remember what Emmanuel said, I'm like, dude, this is my new home. This is where I'm going to live for a very long time. And then when I saw that cross, I was like, wow, Rainbow, sign of the covenant, cross, Jesus. I'm like, wow, this is amazing, God, you know? And then my woman, she comes out of the interview, and she's like, dude, I got the job on the first interview. We're moving to Temecula. And I'm like, Emmanuel said that we would be living in Temecula. You know? Like, this guy that God answered my prayers through, he's like, dude, you're going to be moving to Temecula. And there I was moving to Temecula. Now, here's the interesting part about that, Anthony. Ready for this one?
I'm here.
4 years prior to that, I had began talking to a guy named Gustavo Pugliese, who was the boxing coach of Dan Henderson. And I began talking to him because I was training with Os Omasagi, who was the Penn State boxing club coach. He's the guy who coaches all the boxers from Penn State. And he had went to school and boxed at Lock Haven with Gustavo, who just so happened to be the boxing coach of Dan Henderson. And I had told Gustavo 4 years prior to moving out to California that one day I would train with him and train with Dan Henderson. Well, it all just fell in my lap, bro. Just based off that one prayer, it all just fell in my lap. And here I am, talking to you based on that one prayer. Had I not prayed, I wouldn't be married. Had I not prayed, I wouldn't have my son, my daughter. I wouldn't be living in California. I wouldn't be having this conversation with you. You know, call it the butterfly effect, the domino effect, whatever it is. You know, for every action, there is an equal opposite reaction. You know, everything happens for a reason. And when people say that to me, I don't necessarily think, oh, there's a magic guy in the sky who's coordinating all that. I just think that, you know, we all are conscious beings with imaginations, and I believe we're spirits, and I think that when we tap into that power, that Wi-Fi, if you will, we are capable of literally creating the reality around us that we want.
Yeah, that's a definitely. I'm still, when it comes, I've taken many different spiritual or religious paths, and I'm still trying to find that aspect out myself. And hopefully one day it happens for me. But that's I'm kind of in limbo when it comes to that. But so we're getting close here to the wrap-up point. But I know you were talking about you eventually want to start, or you want to get back into your own podcast. You're working on something.
Yeah, bro, I'm banned on Facebook for saying white trash till May 20th, and then
who did you call white trash that you got banned for?
I didn't call anybody white trash in particular. I just posted a video of a bunch of white, toothless people standing around a table punching each other in the face while drinking beer.
I mean, how else would you describe that?
I know, right?
I think that's an unfair justification of getting banned, but...
Yeah, but I mean, sorry for rambling for so much. I mean, I told my story.
That's the point of this. I really hope you got a lot off your heart and your spirit here today, and I hope this really helped. I enjoyed this conversation. I had a good time, and I learned a lot about some inside stuff about the MMA game, and learned a lot about you, and I'm happy with it. Do you want to quick talk anything about music or childhood or? I think we should. I definitely want to get into your podcast a little bit and talk about that, and then I think we should end it there. And my door is always open to come back and do another show. I don't want to go too long, and it is getting super late here because we do have that difference in time zone, and I do have work in the morning, and I want to get some edits done on this. But yeah, I mean, so like anytime you want to call in, dude, we can always do another conversation, and I always have other shows, and if you ever come back out to Pennsylvania to visit, we can do something too. So what is some of what you want to do with this podcast on Facebook?
Well, I mean, I do pretty much what you do. I'll interview anybody. I don't care if they're famous or not.
Mm-hmm.
The podcast is never about me. It's always about them and what they want to talk about. I don't script anything. I literally just let it flow like we did.
Mm-hmm.
And vital information, basically, it's basically to educate, to empower, and to entertain. You know,
absolutely.
Educate. You know, knowledge is power. To empower people, to make people feel good, to make people feel strong and powerful, and to entertain them, make them happy. You know, make them feel like, okay, I just listened to something that I don't regret listening to.
Absolutely, yeah, that's the thing too. I feel like everyone has a story, and everyone has somewhere where they've came from, and someone can always take something from someone else's story, even if they don't relate to it at all, and find something that can inspire them to do better. And that's pretty much my main thing. And then obviously I'm at the point now where I love the local music scene we have here. We have a lot of super talented musicians, so I'm trying to definitely get them some exposure, and businesses and people who have amazing gifts and abilities with art and whatever it may be. So yeah. And I've been doing pretty decent building up this platform and getting an audience, so I definitely enjoy letting those people be heard and go from there, you know?
Yeah, man, and I want to give a shout-out to Faith in Exile because one or two of those guys mentioned my name. I love Faith in Exile. Their first album was my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
That was the most original sound, but, I mean, they got heavier when they acquired Brandon Sodi, who, you know, played in some of the bands that I was in. And, you know, I mean,
they just made their debut again. It was awesome.
Yeah, I know those guys have full-time jobs, but, I mean, if they lived out here in California, they would definitely get signed. So there's no question about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's. I actually just went and seen another local band that's doing it awesome again last night. We went and seen Crowbot. They just played the Chameleon Club. But yeah, when Faith in Exile was in, your name came up, and then I said, yeah, definitely, I'm interviewing him, and they said, yeah, he's a good dude, and they were bummed to see your knee blow out in the fight. They were pulling for you. But yeah, a bunch of really cool dudes. We're definitely gonna have them back on again, and yeah, it was fun.
Good, man. I mean, I love what you're doing. You know,
I really appreciate that. It means a lot.
Yeah, man. I mean, think about, you know, the area we're from. People are kind of uptight because it's so competitive, like we're talking about. But you're just trying to bring people together.
Yeah, and honestly, the support I've been getting has been absolutely phenomenal. We just hit 1,600 people on Facebook, so the word is definitely spreading. So I can't ask for anything more. Just like I go out and see some bands, or I go out and do some things, or I'm just walking around Walmart, or I'm doing something, and people come up to me all the time, and you know, they compliment the show, and they say I'm doing great things, and they enjoy listening and hearing people that they never thought they would listen to, and they listen to an interview, and that, you know, they become a fan of that person, and it's really, really cool. Like, I don't want to say the name because it was kind of a private conversation, but I just did an interview with a local band, Mahantango, and another member of a band heard the interview, and it inspired them to do different things with music. So like that kind of stuff really, really excites me, that someone can go back and listen to somebody else's interview and say, this person, you know, pushed me to do this better, or, you know, to get clean, to get help, to work on my anxiety, to work on my depression. You know how we talked about the suicide, that's something I struggled with for a very, very long time, and it's something that it rears its ugly head every now and then. We talked about that in an episode. So you know, they're real conversations that real people go through, and I thank all my guests for stepping up and telling their story, because sometimes it's not easy, you know.
Exactly, and I wanted to, like I told you before we had started the interview, that I always want to channel and focus on positivity at the end.
Absolutely.
And I just want to say this. I did mention suicidal thoughts and whatnot, and I've had them all my life. I've had depression, anxiety, and paranoia, and didn't really know what that was. It was just, I thought it was natural to me because my family was like that. And I said something to you earlier. I said, it's hard not being bipolar in a bipolar world. And I'm not saying I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
But I know many people that have been, and I felt that way. It's hard not feeling bipolar in a bipolar world. But what I mean by that is we live in a world that's good and bad. We live in a world that's joy and pain. And, there's a balancing factor to everything. And there's a spectrum. And that spectrum is you have the extreme left of the spectrum, you have the extreme right of the spectrum. And in the middle, they meet, And, you could wake up in the morning like I do, and you could see a field of bunnies hopping around, birds flying around, butterflies, and the sunshine coming out. You could think, that's beautiful, right? And you could just leave it at that. Well, I think that when I wake up. But then I think, well, there's coyotes and birds waiting around to come get these rabbits because I've seen it happen, Or these rabbits are going to cross the road and you get ran over, and somebody's not going to care enough to swerve out of the way of the rabbit.
Mm-hmm.
Just going to run it over for fun. And I've seen people do that. And it's just like, how is somebody like me, who's hypersensitive to the world and a deep thinker, and somebody who wants to be good and do as good as I can, but then have so much corruption and evil around me, and have like that fighter mentality I have, that spirit in me, how do I balance all that?
Yeah.
And I think that so many people in my life have called me crazy and have doubted me and thought that I'd be in jail or something like that. I'm 30 years old. I have a clean criminal record. I have a family. I have a job. You know what I mean? I have all these like negative aspects about me, but at the end of the day, I still have life and I still have the opportunity to live. And not one of us really truly knows why we're here or how we got here, but we can make that purpose ours. We can make our purpose. And I truly believe that we're all here to feel good and to love and to not hurt people that are innocent. Like that's why I love fighting, because it's an agreement. We're agreeing to fight each other.
Yeah.
We're exercising our will to win, our competitive nature for a prize, for multiple prizes. And, Wanderlei Silva said this: war in the ring, peace on earth. And if you apply that to life, your life will be so much better. So what I want to say to people out there listening is, look, whether you think I'm strong or I'm weak, I'm both. And I'm only strong because of my weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm only weak because of my strength. And what I mean by that is, at one point I was a little kid who was neglected, starved, beaten, hated, and I thought that I was the only one in the world. I thought that I was the center of the world because of that. And I grew up with such hatred and pain, and I wanted to sadistically hurt other people because of that. And I did, to my siblings and my cousins, and then I developed a guilty consciousness. Said, no, this is not what a hero is. A hero is somebody that's good. A hero is somebody that fights for good. A hero is somebody that fights for justice. And just basically, how I want to live my life for the rest of my life is I want to live a hero. And whoever you are out there, you have a hero inside of you. Even if it's just saving yourself for one more day, from drugs, from suicide, from sexual abuse, or domestic violence, or whatever it is that you are battling, you are capable of beating it, because I am. Mm-hmm. And because I've thought about ending my life more than not. And if I can do that, then you can do that.
Absolutely.
And I just want to say this. One of my best friends ever, once called the suicide hotline on me because I was talking stupid. And he said, I would never kill myself over a girl. You're talking stupid, bro. You're smarter than that. You're smarter than that. I talked to him for the first time in a long time one day, and he wasn't talking very much. And he normally talks like me, as much as I do. And then I didn't hear from him again, and then 6 months later I saw his profile picture, and a woman was cut out of his profile picture, and it was so weird to me. And I went on his Facebook page, and I saw somebody say, I miss you, I wish you were still here. And it dawned on me. I just started immediately crying in Texas. My friend had shot himself to death over a girl. Same person called a suicide hotline on me.
Mm-hmm.
So, don't take anybody's talks about suicide lightly. Leave people better off than when you met them.
Absolutely.
Just love each other. Everybody wants to be happy, And some people are just inherently evil, I think. Maybe some people are whether pedophiles, rapists, killers, But if you're listening to me and you're like me, you have a balance of good and evil. Choose good. feel of her.
It's something like I said, I struggle, and I'm still in like a limbo stage when it comes to spiritual reality and spirituality and stuff like that. But I've come to terms with, you're not always going to be the hero in someone's story. There's going to be that one person you're going to talk to in life, and they're going to dislike you for something you've done in the past. And you can dwell on it, or you can move on, and work on yourself and make yourself a better person. And if that person then chooses to accept you who you are after your change, then that's beautiful. If not, then it just wasn't meant to be. But the biggest thing I can achieve to how you're saying how can you control other situations, and I really don't try to. My biggest thing is I continue to try to always be positive. I try not to do harm. I don't do harm to others. I treat people how I want to be treated, and I just don't accept negativity. And I found that people who dwell more on the negativity in life, they see me, and I don't know if I have like a spiritual barrier up around me or something, or I just don't allow it with my positivity, and I just draw people with similar interests. And it seems to when I became that mind state, and it was something I really worked towards, and something I like changed about myself. It just seems that like even people who, my loved ones, my family members who perceive me as a certain way, when I've carried myself in a more positive light, I draw more positivity towards me, and it's contagious. And I've seen other people make changes because they've seen the change in me, and I just think that's a great way to pass on, and it's a great mind state to have, and you just breed more positivity, because it's easy to be a negative person in the world that we live in today, but it's a lot harder to stay positive and be positive,
Exactly, man. And regardless of what you believe, whether religious or spiritual or atheist or whatever, Satanist, I don't care. Regardless, the fact is we're all energy. Yep. Everything, all of existence is energy, and all the energy cannot be seen unless it combines together to form matter. And energy cannot be created nor destroyed. Energy is eternal. And when you realize that, and you realize that you are the master of your choices, that you can choose to feel and think a certain way, then and you could basically choose what energy to be, to feel, then you can literally turn your energy up or turn your energy down. And like, I was diagnosed with ADHD, bro. Like, I have hyperactivity, but guess what? It's not always there. And when it goes away, my energy is low. I feel impending doom. Like, it goes from boredom. It goes from like low energy becomes boredom, and then that becomes anxiety, worry, and then that worry like becomes depressing. And then I don't want to go any further than the boredom aspect. So yeah. I know that about myself, and most people are like that, whether they realize it or not. Most people, because they're not living their purpose, or because they're not staying active and busy, they're not channeling their energy and having high energy, they're low. Yeah, they're going to feel that way.
And I was like that for a long time. And in November, I made this podcast is something I've talked about for a long time. And I started it maybe 4 years ago. I recorded a conversation with my friend Brian. That's, if you go on Spotify, it's my pilot episode. And then I just sat on this idea for years. And then I was like, you know what? I'm doing it again. It's just something that I feel like I want to do. And I started in November, and I've been going strong ever since. And it keeps my energy up. It keeps me motivated. It keeps me driven. It has a goal in mind. And honestly, like, it's the anxiety, depression, and all that negativity is just has slowly worked its way out. And it's because I've given myself a purpose, and it's not something I didn't think I would ever be good at, or I don't even know if I'm good at it now, but it's something I enjoy doing, But
you're great at it.
Thank
you.
You're great at it. Thank you. I appreciate that. I just try to find role models or inspirations, and I go from there. But Cody, I really want to thank you so much for calling in and staying up late with me and talking to me. This interview will air on Friday, and people that are listening, it'll be on Spotify, every major platform, YouTube. If you are watching this now on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button. Please hit that subscribe button. We're trying so hard to get that up so I can work on that monetization and start getting some cash to get better equipment to keep this thing growing. And tune in every Wednesday or Thursday to our live shows, Tornado Tag Podcasts, and things that weren't cool in high school. And Cody, once again, thank you so much for tuning in, brother. And I appreciate you, man. And I'm glad we had a conversation, and I would consider you a friend after tonight. anytime you're in our area, or if I go out to California, we'll definitely hook up and do some stuff. All right.
I'm glad you said that, because one thing I wanted to tell you, and I didn't say it in the beginning, I forgot, was that I'm telling you right now. I was going to say, I'm telling you right now, before this conversation starts, we're going to become good friends.
Yeah.
And you just said it, so thank you very much. I just want to leave you with this. My good buddy, his name is Bruno Irde. He was an old Italian guy. He actually was a chef for Michael Jackson for 8 years, lived with him, and got to know Michael pretty well. He said this. He was a guru, a yogi. He said, where your focus goes, your energy goes. Where your energy goes, your power goes. And where your power goes, you go. So be careful of what you focus on.
Mm-hmm. I like that a lot, man. That's something definitely to dwell on there. I like that a lot. But we're going to end it here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Cody, thank you once again. And that'll do it here for Interviews with Everyday People.
Amen. Have a great night. Take care. Be blessed, buddy.